Hey, everybody, welcome to the 6 round post fight show with me, Zane Simon, and my co host, as always, Eddie Mercado. We're coming back to you guys just after the conclusion of UFC on ABC, Rozenstruik versus Almeida, which went down at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, with Jailton Almeida wrapping up the very expectable, very predictable, not at all a shock first round submission win over Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
Yeah, damn near a flawless victory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he comes out, he doesn't get his first takedown, but damn, he hits that low double leg, and Biggie Boy just kind of falls to his back, and it was kind of a matter of time from there. Almeida is so methodical and so controlling and so aware of everything that's going on the mat that he's 4, 5, 6 steps ahead of you. You know, like he knew full out, posture up, throw the ground strikes. The guy is obviously going to either get knocked out or he's going to expose his back. What did he do? Jairzinho exposes his back, immediately gets strangled. I mean, it's just levels, and Rozenstruik's ground game is nowhere even does not even belong in the same conversation. Like, not even remotely close. So Rozenstruik had to keep it standing. He couldn't keep it standing. This is what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. That I think in part it's just the nature of heavyweights. They're just not as fast as your littler guys. So like things like scrambles and that kind of stuff are a lot more difficult for a lot of your bigger dudes. They're not gonna. It's a lot harder to get your hooks in around somebody with thighs like tree trunks, or to scramble through as somebody's swimming and like keep on their back and stuff like that. We've seen guys like Derek Lewis just sort of like stand up and have somebody slide off them over and over again. And that's also a thing at heavyweight where the last thing most fighters want is a heavyweight sprawling on them and stuffing their takedown. So there's not a lot of fighters that wrestle and grapple at heavyweight, which also on the flip side means that there are not a lot of heavyweights prepared for a really good wrestling and grappling game. And
not a lot of specialists, grapplers in heavyweight.
And Jailton, like, this was the thing, watching tape for this, we could all predict it well enough, but I was watching him in his last fight against Shamil Abdurakhimov, and he gets in there on this like low double leg where he's, swimming for the ankles and like pulling them out. And I was just looking at that and thinking about Rozenstruik, and it's just like, what in the hell is Rozenstruik going to do about that? What part of this man who basically stands like lock-legged in one place so that he can throw a huge counter shot when somebody steps into range on him? What part of that is going to be ready for somebody grabbing him around the ankles? And, credit to him, he stuffed the first takedown attempt. That was nice. But the moment Almeida got a little sense to draw the fight out, make things have to think a little more, adjust a little more, then he just grabbed him and tipped him over. Rozenstruik had nothing ready for that, for a reactive double leg that was low in around his knees. Nothing he could do about it.
Yeah, I always loved how Curtis Blades just really leaned into it and just he gave so many guys fits just because they couldn't keep up with, didn't have the chops of Curtis Blades. And but what sucks for Blades is he lets guys hang around.
Yeah.
Whereas at heavyweight, you have to be lethal. You have to be lethal. And Almeida, he's got the specialized ground attack, but he's lethal with it. He's either going to round you out, or he's going to choke you out, or it's going to be a combination of both, like we got right here. And
he's also done.
It's hard. It's hard to think of. I haven't seen this kind of someone who's got the ground and pound and the submissions. It's usually like one or the other. So I mean, this is one of the first guys like you gotta go way back to think of complete heavyweights like this on the ground. I mean, Fedor. It's not many who are just as comfortable and controlling with the ground and pound as they are with their submissions, and blend the two so seamlessly. He's special, man.
Yeah, it is. It's great to see, and it's all just. I think the big thing too for him that has been such a trouble for Blades, and we won't know until Almeida's going to run up to the top 5, and we'll know exactly how good his game stacks up at the very highest levels when he gets there. But the thing that I'm hopeful about so far with Almeida is that the kind of strikes he throws are well set up to help lead him into his takedowns. Because that's the big problem that Blades has gotten into, is that all the work he's put in on his boxing has just taken him away from the posture to shoot. So that, he's out there and he's standing up tall and he's got his hands up and he's pumping out his jab and his cross and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, that's nice. It's clean. It gets you a knockout over somebody like Chris Dockhouse. But then you're in there against, the Russian guy he fought last time, Pavlovich. Then you're in there against Pavlovich and you're starting to trade 1-2s, and suddenly it's just like, okay, now how do you get to your wrestling game off of this? How, right. You're up here in this upright posture, you're popping your jab out. What's the easy connection to a takedown from here? Whereas, Almeida, it's like, okay, here's my swimming overhand, and I'm going to duck in right behind this, and I'm going to make you have to make the guess as to what I'm doing when I come forward. And
yeah, I have to credit it's his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? Like, you don't have that at all in wrestling. Like, at no point is that instilled in to blend your strikes into your grappling. But I mean, you go back and look at Royce Gracie in UFC 1, he's throwing those front kicks, but like the front stomp, and it's the worst thing ever, but it gave him enough momentum to spring himself forward into these takedowns, into the clinch where he needs to be. So it's ugly as sin, but it was a blending. And Almeida does that. He blends it all. It's not, okay, I'm either striking or I'm grappling. It seems like the whole time he's trying to think of ways to close the distance and get the fight down. And it's brilliant. It's high five Q.
It is. And it'll be interesting too to see, like, as he goes up and faces more big guys, getting up to the top, really get into the Gons and the Pavloviches and the Blades up there at the top of the division. But it also has to help that right now that he's like a 220, 230 pound heavyweight. And so his level change and his overhand and stuff like that, they're just a lot faster than what everybody else is bringing. So it really gives him that extra step that he can change. He can make that transition and make fighters have to guess at a speed that they're not used to working at. And
he might have a power disadvantage, but that doesn't really matter with his style.
Yep. It's fascinating to see. I can't wait to see, he called out, you can't hate that Tai Tuivasa call out. Like, you're looking for ways to get yourself from top 10 to top contender. Guys, like somebody like Tai Tuivasa, it's a clear bridge. But I can't help feeling like we're going to see him in these really tough top tier fights here before long. And I can't wait for it. I can't wait for the day that we get Jailton Almeida versus Cyril Gane, something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's fun the whole way. You know, he's special. Like, the guy's he's a finishing machine. He has a very specialized game. What he's coming to do, but no one seems to be able to do anything about it. So, damn right.
Yep. Love to see it. Wasn't much of a fight, but it was the performance to get me. I'm still excited by it. I'm still like, oh, I want to see this dude. I want to see what he's done because, no offense to Rozenstruik, but we've seen Rozenstruik get up to the top of the division, and we saw how his game stacks up. And, I want the new flavor.
Yeah. So definitely a huge positive leaving this card. I mean, Finish machine. He's strangling heavyweights.
Exactly. Now on the flip side, we got this light heavyweight fight: Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith, and first and foremost, was Johnny Walker sandbagging it? Is that what he's trying to tell us when he comes in there with the post-fight speech and he's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't want to finish him. I didn't want to finish him early. That's no fun. I got to go out there and put my 3 rounds of work in." It's like, are you telling us that you're carrying Anthony Smith? Because I don't think that that's what happened, but
that's damn near point shaving, right?
it is.
Like, no, I don't blame him at all for this, man. Not at all. Anthony Smith is a very dangerous individual. He was getting very desperate, winging some crazy overhand rights. And Walker is notorious for getting knocked out in a preposterous fashion. So for him to not find a way to get knocked out and lose this, it shows an improved IQ. So
it is a big improvement. It is a big improvement over where Walker was over the past couple of years. I'm not a big fan of SBG Ireland's tendency of anything, but how consistently they tend to improve fighters. I feel like a lot of people just stagnate there. But for Walker, this was at the very least, he went in his past couple fights from being a guy who was just watching people at range and getting pieced up and losing and not doing anything, to coming out in this fight and having a couple of tools that he was just using all the time, all the way through consistently. Just being like, go for the leg kicks, throw the jabs, just, stay on the simple stuff. And, for Smith, like he's been a hard fighter for a lot of fighters to look good against standing. He's not necessarily always the most dangerous striker, but he's tough at light heavyweight. He's been tough to put away standing. Usually most guys who beat him end up having to take him down and mauling him on the ground. But this was, so, to that extent, it wasn't an electrifying performance. Doesn't immediately make me think, oh man, I can't wait to see Johnny Walker in a title fight. But it makes it more interesting to see him back in the top of the division if he's going to face somebody like Alexander Rakic or, somebody like that, where I'm more interested in it now than I was when I was watching him get going up for the 3-pointer against Thiago Santos or whatever. Or was that Jamal Hill? That was Jamal Hill. Yeah.
Jamal Hill.
Hitting the jumper against Jamal Hill.
I mean, credit to Walker for even running. He hopped out of the octagon and ran over to Jamal Hill to say some words. Smart move. He's not anywhere close to that title shot, especially with the way he lost the first time. But I'll say Johnny Walker has huge in intelligence. Huge. I don't know what's going on, but his IQ is through the roof lately. So whatever he's doing, it's working. And like you said, I want to see how long it can continue, because I feel like it's going to come crashing down at any moment. But I'm for the ride. I
mean, even in this fight, he had a couple of moments where it's like, oh, you're doing really well, and then you just got plunked by a very injured Anthony Smith on his last desperate lifeline. I'm about to get knocked out. Here's the one thing I have left, and it worked every time to keep Johnny Walker from putting him away. So there is still that sense of Johnny Walker walking a very fine tightrope between new and improved, I'm using my tools smartly or intelligently, and same old Johnny Walker, I just got absolutely crushed out of nowhere. So yeah, it wasn't a great fight, but it was the most consistent performance of Johnny Walker's career. That's what I would say.
For sure. On the feet, for sure.
All right, that brings us to a definite highlight of the card. Ian Machado. I am going to say the Machado just for Gary for getting this win the way he did. Ian Machado Gary, Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez, and I felt like, we talked about this on the Vivia, obviously, and all that set up, and I was like, you know what? I think he's good. I think he's legit. I think he's going to come out and do really well early, and Rodriguez might rally late, but I'll pick Gary to go out there and, be the technician, be the rangy fighter, trouble D-Rod to get in and, really land his counters and all that. And Gary just went out there and absolutely snuffed Rodriguez. This was an awesome performance from him. I hope he can shed the what was it? Somebody on Twitter called him the Costco Conor McGregor label. I hope he can shed that, because he's got a lot of his own skills, and it is a very different skill set than Conor McGregor had.
Now, this was insanely impressive. And it was set up from the very first strike that he threw, because he comes out and he kicks right to the body and he connects. And D-Rod's like, ooh, all right. So the whole time he's already thinking, don't let that happen again. Shortly after that, Gary goes with a head kick, lands with the toes. I mean, it's the toes barely just graze him. And then, a couple sequences later, he just lands full on, and it looked like D-Rod thought it was going to the body. So he goes to block to the body, and it's all straight.
One of the things I think that really was great for Gary in this fight was, because when he came to the UFC, he was very much like a back foot circling away, walk you onto my pull counters kind of fighter. And in this fight, he used the pull counters to put enough hesitation into Rodriguez to stop Rodriguez's interest in pressuring for long enough to really set up those creative kick sequences and those points where Rodriguez then had to start guessing and sitting out at distance with Gary, being like, okay, do I want to step in? Because the last time I stepped in, I hit a really hard jab, or the time I stepped in before that, I got walked onto a really hard right hand. And, so it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll sit back a little and try to feel my way into this fight and make some reads. And Gary's tricky. He knows what he's setting up. He knows what he wants to trick people with. And I think that's pretty rare, honestly, for a lot of fighters to have that kind of confidence in their striking tools, especially UFC, where we get a lot of grapplers who are just kind of learning to strike as they go. It's rare for a lot of MMA prospects to really be able to be like, I'm going to throw, we hear all the time, oh, he's, reaching for the kick, throw it to the head, stuff like that. And you almost never see the fighter actually throw and land the head kick that they've set up by throwing low kicks. Gary has clearly got a very clear picture in his mind as to
it's polish, and it's just like how earlier I was saying Jailton Almeida, how he's 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. The same. You always hear grappling or jiu-jitsu referred to as human chess, but the same exact thing is for the stand-up. You can have the same sort of traps, the same. You can set things up in very similar kind of way to where you're not just out there throwing random combos in the moment. You're throwing things with the intent of building onto something else, and you're making these reads the whole time. And you use feints, you use fakes, you use all these different tools, and they're really great strikers. And this is what I love about One is they have actual Muay Thai fights. So you see some of the highest level kickboxing, Muay Thai kickboxing going on. And they're doing stuff like that. Look at Rod Tang. That man is insane. And we don't get very much striking like that in the UFC. So when we do get things like this, it's we got to gush a little. Incredible showcases over someone. D-Rod and he is tough. That dude, no one puts him out like that.
No,
this is superhuman.
He's only been stopped once before, and that was in his last fight by submission to Neil Magny. He got knocked out once as a pro boxer in 2015, but he's been tough as hell his whole career, and Gary put him
Gary's
away.
the truth.
He's,
Gary is the truth.
I honestly, I love the skills he's been building with, and I love to, I'm going to be always a fan of this, is that he made his base camp with Henry Hooft. So that like the striking fundamentals are something that are always going to be getting sharpened and worked on and improved for him.
And he's a great dude, man. I got to spend some time with him down in Orlando at one of the karate combat events, and just the nicest guy ever. He's got his baby out there playing with it, doing all sorts of ninja tricks and stuff. Just seems like a happy guy.
Now, on the other side, too, he called out Neil Magny after this. Magny's got a fight booked. It's against Philip Rowe. The winner out of that could fight Ian Gary, sure. But I also saw this being suggested, and I think it's just a much more fun idea, which is Ian Gary, Kevin Holland.
It's well, you just murked D-Rod. I feel like that kind of puts you right there in that kind of. I don't want to say it's too much too soon. I kind of was my initial thought, but you just
Rodriguez is ranked. Holland isn't.
Yeah, but Holland's weird. We know why. Holland can't be ranked.
He's too weird to be ranked.
He's too weird. Yeah, he's only interested in stand-up fights, but this sounds like something he'd be interested in. Ooh.
Yeah.
Why not?
I like that idea.
Not?
Why not?
It'll be violent.
It would be a hell of a lot of fun. And Gary undefeated too. Like, he could always stand a prospect loss if he's going to meet a prospect loss. He's running up the division. So it's not the kind of thing where I'm just like, oh man, I just don't, if he loses, what's going to happen? It's like, no, he could eat it and be right back and, stay on track to be a contender someday in the future. As long as he's undefeated and putting guys away like this, I'm all for just keeping him in cool, hard fights. All right, that brings us to a light heavyweight bout. Carlos Ulberg, Ihor Potieria. And I was a little surprised for a minute there. I thought like Ulberg would come out with the kicks. He would make Potieria like pay for walking onto him that way. And it was really Potieria who had like the better success kicking and stuff like that early in the fight, and seemed like he lunged in with a couple big overhands and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's Potieria putting a little pressure on Ulberg, putting a little scared to him. But nah, him walking onto Ulberg is just a dangerous thing no matter what. That man's check hook, that is a scary strike. And it only took one. It only took one overreach from Potieria and one hook right behind the ear.
Yeah, it landed. It didn't even land on the chin or anything. It just, like you said, and just completely wiped his equilibrium. Just done. And Ulberg had to call his own fight, man. He's like pounding on this, obviously done, and the ref just like, he ain't dead yet. And Ulberg
Cruz is over there going like, no, let him back in the fight. Let him back. You got to keep it. Dom's salty as hell out there because it's Keith Peterson.
Pissed. What did he call him, Keith? He
called
him
all nonsense, Keith Peterson.
Man,
he is salty for the rest of his life. Yeah, the booth in general, Dom and DC, you got to get those two well away from each other.
This was, he called his own fight, man. Reminded me of BJ Penn, Sean Shirk. Anytime you call your own fight, that's pretty gangster. And the referee could have stopped it, but I think it was still within a window where, I think I'm going to call it. He stopped his own fight, but it wasn't getting too. It wasn't like crazy ridiculous.
No, it was. I thought it was perfect because he gets to walk off and look like a badass, and it could have been a huge mistake. Potieria could have sprung right up and just started, running after him. The fact that Potieria didn't, you did the perfect thing. You clearly called your fight at the right time if your opponent is not willing to get up and start fighting the moment you walk away from them. So
Brown did the same thing too.
yeah, it was a cool move. I liked it. Somebody in our chat is talking that Ulberg should fight Dustin Jacoby. I would be totally fine with that. I would also just say maybe Iwan Kudalaba. He's on a couple wins, and it wouldn't be maybe as big a step up as Jacoby, but I think it'd be a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, violence either way.
Yeah,
It's violence either way. Who just knocked out Jacoby?
Jacoby just got beat by. He didn't get knocked out, but he just got beat by Azamat Mirzakhanov. So that's another fight you could do for Ulberg. But Mirzakhanov, I didn't actually see the follow up on this, but he was saying that he broke his arm during the fight with Jacoby. So that would be probably a little while out if they were going to book something like that. All right.
Lots of fun.
That brings. Oh, sorry.
Lots of fun, man. These guys.
Yeah. That brings us to a welterweight bout. Alex Morono, Tim Means, and Means was doing good in this fight for a while.
Sure.
They were both mixing it up. I thought Means actually won the first round with that big flurry he had right at the bell that saw Morono get his head snapped back a couple times and looked like he was just a little bit shell-shocked. And then Morono came out really good in round 2, just started putting it on Means from the jump. Looked like Means was starting to find his way back into the round just a little bit. And then that spinning back fist to guillotine combo, that is so pretty to me, because that the only way that Morono could have gotten that sub is if he thinks about and works on that exact chain of ideas of I throw the back fist, you will shoot on me for throwing the dumb spinning shit, and I will jump on the guillotine right away. Because who would ever expect that? Who is gonna jump in on that double leg and expect, if I put my neck out right now, I'm in trouble?
Yeah, you might want to go train with Valentina Shevchenko.
yeah, no kidding.
Burn. No, that was sweet, man, and he's a genius. Honestly, he's a fight genius. He's a teacher, he's a coach, and he seems like someone who just has a really big bag of tricks to pull from. And this was one of those things. It was such a gorgeous sequence. And we always bitch about people jumping the guillotine, right?
Yeah.
That's because the people that are jumping them aren't that ain't their thing. That ain't their move. It's not.
Well, and like I said, I love this one because it really is one of those moments where if you're throwing something spinning like that and your opponent is going to shoot in on you, they expect to be catching you off guard. So they're not going to be shooting a real tight defensive shot where they're like, I got to hide my neck on this to make sure that I don't get wrapped up in something. They're thinking, free takedown. You threw stupid spinning shit, free takedown for me. And for Morono to be no, right there, here's the guillotine on you the moment you put your neck out. That's cool. It reminds me a little bit of one of the things Matt Schnell does that I really also love that nobody else does, which is that whenever somebody shoots on him, he will jump the guillotine and he doesn't even necessarily have to get it or be that tight with it or anything like that. But the moment he jumps the guillotine, he then hooks his leg over the person's shoulder as he's getting taken down. And so he can lock the triangle up the moment he hits the mat and lets go of the guillotine. He's in triangle position. And it's just that kind of stuff, that kind of trickery. I love seeing that stuff. That's always really cool to me.
Yes. So not to be confused with just a bum ass guillotine jump because you don't know how to defend a takedown.
Yeah, not to be confused. These are clearly set up moves, things that people have practiced, traps they've laid that are always fun. And afterward, I'm gonna watch the fight. I get paid to. I'm gonna watch every fight, so it's not worth my word on that. Really isn't worth that much, but I don't care about Morono versus Barberena, but if you're going to book Morono versus Barberena, I am definitely going to see it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kind of very similar, honestly. Unassuming overproducers.
Yep.
It might be a little bit mirror match now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because Morono, after his fight, he said they've already got it booked. Or I don't think they already have it booked. I think he and Barberena have made a verbal agreement to fight next. And Barberena is coming off the loss to Gunnar Nelson, but what the hell? Alex Morono is a dude that I love watching in any fight because he has one of the most not unathletic, normal white dude bodies fighting at a very high level. He's not even like super coordinated or like super fluid out there. He's got that like tippy toe BJ Penn boxing style that he likes to use and throws really awkward wide looping shots. But as you say, like the dude is on the ball. He knows exactly what he's doing with his goofy style and his goofy body. And it's always fun as hell to watch.
No, it's great. I mean, it gives us regular folks hope, right?
Yeah, right? Exactly. Alex Morono out there doing it for all of us. All right. That brings us to Matt Brown, Court McGee, and kind of.
What do you mean, man?
I mean, I hate to see somebody get slept. I love seeing Brown get the knockout. I'm glad to see him get tie Derek Lewis for the record. It is the best testament for a fighter like Matt Brown to be in the record books like that because it's all about longevity for him. I mean, the power's there, sure, but the big reason Matt Brown is getting to that record alongside Derek Lewis is that he's been there for 40 years, plugging away, having awesome wars. And so I love that. It's just, we were kind of wondering on the Vivi this week if like McGee's chin has lost some of its density. And I'm starting to think that might be the case.
Sure. Brown though, like
all
fact
credit
he's
to dude.
Tied with a heavyweight for most knockouts in UFC history is insane to me. To just like heavy, my guy's like 170 pounds soaking wet out there. Well, not soaking wet, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so
no, I do.
For him to, and I'll always say that he's got some of the best Muay Thai we've ever seen in the UFC. I'm more than willing to die on that hill. Man, good for him, man. I hope it's into the UFC Hall of Fame somehow, some way. But I also want to say, shout out to these guys. You got Tim Means, you got Matt Brown, Court McGee. You got guys who have battled with substance abuse, who have found an outlet through martial arts and completely turned their lives around and made something of themselves. I think it's important to highlight that. That's something, to have, three different examples on the same card. I think it's a good time to kind of bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
If anyone's dealing with that, go find a gym. It will absolutely change your life.
Alex Morono, he did the company man pandering to the boss thing, but it was a great message to just be like, that there is a channel through martial arts to change your life, to help bring something new to your life. And you hear it from a lot of these people. A lot of the people that are out there are 100% on board of like, if I wasn't fighting, I would be in much worse places in my life, be in jail, be dead, be whatever it may be. It's clear that sports, it can really, it can really help. And martial arts, we've got a guy writing for us now, Chris Baker, who does a lot of like highlighting studies around martial arts, like scientific studies.
Mm-hmm.
And he did one here. He brought some attention to one too, that like people who do martial arts, like it really helps give them actual like peace and discipline in their life. That you can see that, when people respond to different questions over time through training and things like that, that they actually, they feel more at peace through these kinds of things. So,
I mean, even for me, if it
yeah,
weren't for martial arts, I'd probably be either 500 pounds or dead. Honestly, it definitely had a huge impact on my life. And when you're gassed and you get someone beating on you, it's life changing. You're like, you know what, this
sure.
sucks, and I don't want to feel like this anymore. So maybe I'm not going to eat these cheeseburgers. Maybe I'll eat the salad and not feel like shit before I train and actually have some sort of performance.
See, this is why I'm just lifting weights these days and doing like deadlifts and stuff like that. Then I can eat the cheeseburgers and have the good feeling.
I guess.
I know. I'm just, but somebody in the chat too came up with the idea of seeing Matt Brown, Tim Means. We have already seen that fight. I'm saying, what about Matt Brown and Santiago Ponzinibbio?
I don't want to see that shit, man.
No.
I only want to see Brown and fellow OGs.
Santiago Ponzinibbio is not a fellow OG.
Nah, he's a little dry still, I feel like.
I don't buy it. I think Santiago is firmly in OG territory.
I don't think the O enough, I don't think, in the G. The G's fine. The O, not O enough.
All right. Let's see. How old is Ponzinibbio here? He's okay. You're right. He's only 36. He's not
only
old
36. Only 36.
That's younger than me. So anything younger than me is officially a young man now.
Fair, very fair. How old are you?
How old am I? I'm 39 next month. So
okay, well, happy early birthday.
Yeah.
And you're aging well, Zane. You fine bottle of wine, you.
That's right. I'm only getting better. It'll be one of those, I'm like the apple that's rotting from the inside, where it just looks great from the outside, and then you'll take that bite and you'll be like, oh man, this thing's way too old.
Or like a wax apple.
Yeah, wax apple. There we go. It's the tufts. I'm getting my eyes done. All right, that brings us to a heavyweight bout. Carl Williams, Chase Sherman. Williams got the win, but maybe a little tiny bit of bloom off the rose. Like, Chase Sherman has been a dude that basically every very decent fighter he's ever fought has just walked over, kind of. And this was not a walkover performance from Carl Williams. This was I couldn't get my wrestling working, and I am now forced to kickbox performance. And he was a little faster. He hit a little harder than Chase Sherman, but that was about it on the dividing line.
Yeah, and he got his leg obliterated. He didn't take a single leg kick. He gassed out. I think he took the second round off. Like he not a good performance. Solid opening round.
Yeah,
but
solid opening round, but
wasn't able to build enough on his feet to put things together long enough to have any kind of sustained damage. And like Sherman, you got to run right through him.
Yeah,
he's tough, and he's technical, but you can out athlete him.
Yeah, and he's always hittable, so it really is.
Sure. But he's always game, and he's always game.
He's always game. I do want to. I don't think it'd be the next fight to book, but I will say at this point now, my interest for Carl Williams is entirely in seeing him fight Alexander Romanov.
Yeah, maybe a 1-rounder. Maybe we book a 1-rounder there.
Yeah. All right.
I want to sit through 3 rounds of that. Damn.
Well, hey, I got to get more content for the depressed us out here. But it can't all be good fights. We got to have some terrible sear your soul into the back of your brain through your eyes kind of fights.
Well, I don't know. We got celebrity boxing running amok, so I get enough of that.
True. All right. That brings us to Douglas Silva de Andrade, Cody Stamen, and man, referees, the ref totally fucked Cody Stamen here.
100% fucked him. No
Yeah.
lube, raw dog.
Just absolutely shit awful reffing decision to give away take away the position based on a foul your opponent committed, where you're not even taking a point. Like we've seen,
not even taking a point and not even giving the fouled fighter time to recover or get checked out or anything.
Yeah,
he just stood him up and was like, "Fight."
Yep.
It's like, well, what?
Yeah, really terrible.
Well, this is the part of the show where from here on out, I'm gonna just start bitching about how we desperately need to revisit the rules and change them. Cody Stamen might have won this fight under Pride rules.
Sure.
You know, and I'm tired of all these knees to a down opponent. Like, get this shit out of here. It should be a legal move. There's no legit reason why it shouldn't be. And when we earlier on the card, we get people gaming the system. Like, that makes me feel gross, and I hate that shit. And this is in the same vein. We need to revisit the rules.
Yeah. So on the one hand, and Cody, as our channel mod here has noted, that Stamen is contesting the decision. I will just say and lay out, I do not at all think that there is a point where that contestation is going to work for him. The big reason, the only way I could see it possibly working for Stamen would be for the ref himself to go before the commission and say, hey, I screwed this up. And I screwed it up really badly. That fight should be a no contest because of that mistake. And the ref would have to say that. And I doubt in this kind of situation that the ref is going to say that, because they probably feel like they had a logic of like, oh, at the time I did this because I felt this. And the logic may be busted, but if they have a logic of why they felt they made that decision, the thing for Stamen, unfortunately, going out after that is he had a whole nother round and a half after that decision was made to win this fight. There was a lot of time for him to do any of a whole number of things that could have won in this fight. And for him to not get that done, you can't really go back and say, oh, because I lost one takedown position in the middle of the second round.
No, that was the first round.
No, it was round two. It was middle of round two. Yeah.
I thought it was the opening round.
No, it was the middle of round two, I think. Unless I'm... I got my stat. Now you're... Why are you doing this to me, Eddie?
I gotta type this shit out. Like, I don't have a choice but to remember.
Okay, you're right. It was the first round. So he had 2.5 rounds, in fact.
Exactly. Right.
He had
to further your point.
Yeah, to further the point then, he had 2.5 rounds to go back out there into the fight and get that win, to work and get another takedown. If you can only get one takedown in a fight and you lose that position, that's not a good argument that that's a fight that you should have won. Had just because you lost that one takedown. It's like, oh, my one desperate moment of offense didn't get, got taken away from me, and I lost another 10 minutes because of that. That's, how is a commission supposed to adjudicate that? Like, that would make a lot of decisions very difficult to maintain if they start overturning fights for that.
Your point is, Stamen did not lose this fight because of that one moment.
Yeah. The other
but
person,
he might argue, I won the round. Had I kept that takedown, I would have won the first. I would have won a decision. I understand his argument.
No, at the end of the argument's there, but it's just, you can't, you can't bet on the future. You can't say, oh, had you let me keep that takedown, I would have absolutely won that round. You might have, but you couldn't do anything afterward to win that round. So You know, what does that say?
This is poor officiating. It's
Yeah.
really upsetting because these guys have win bonuses on the line, and you got officials interfering with the matches to a noticeable degree.
Unfortunately, is also a case in the comments notes. Refs need to be sent back to the regionals for mistakes like this. This was the regionals. UFC Fight Night cards are the regionals in modern MMA. I hate to say it, but
Yeah,
you know,
it's a shame.
The other outcome of that is that we also got the other person to blame, because I believe it was Eric Nixick in Stamen's corner, because he was the one who came out on Twitter afterward talking about how, you know, like this, he was out there talking about what a problem it was, and I believe he was there in Stamen's corner for this fight. And Eric, you're like a good high-level coach. How did your fighter get to round 3 not knowing that they had lost 2 rounds? You know, you're the other person to blame here. Like, it was very clear that Cody Stamann had not won either of the first 2 rounds. And at the end of the fight, Stamann's there with his hand raised, even after the ref puts the other guy's hand up, and he's like, "What's going on? Why didn't I win that fight?" Like,
yeah, well, I mean, I understand that also. You're in a crazy fight. First round's kind of close. I mean, in the third round, you absolutely cleaned this guy's clock.
yeah.
I mean,
but he got outstruck 2-1 in the first 2 rounds. There was no way he was getting those.
No, I understand. I understand. But like you nearly finished someone. If you're a fighter, I fully expect you to have delusions of grandeur.
I expect the fighter to have delusions of grandeur. I'm just saying that as a corner, you got to be looking out for your guy there, because he had Andrade badly hurt in that third round, and he did not look like he was fighting for the finish. He looked like he was fighting to keep that round 1 and keep that round solid, because he thought he already had one in the bank.
I don't know, man. I felt like he went for it in the third. He went
for it to hurt Andrade, but then he
tried to finish him.
He got on top of him. He started wrestling him. Like, just
because
let
that's
the man.
Who he is.
I know. I'm just
like you're like expecting this high level of IQ out of Cody Stamann, and it's like he was Cody Stamann out there. I know if that were me in the first round, we wouldn't have kept fighting. I would have been like, nah, I want my position back.
Yeah.
At minimum, I need to see the doctor. I would have threw a fit. So Cody Stamann is a better sportsman than I, because that would have called my own timeout. Yeah. That's some bullshit. That was to see that at this level is unacceptable.
It was terrible reffing. All right, that gets us to our true controversy fight of the night: Mandy Bohm, Kim Ji-yeon. And now I saw a bunch of stuff that, like, apparently Kim was really pissed at Bohm because Bohm pulled out of their last fight, and Kim had to miss her grandmother's funeral for it, or because of that. Because I don't understand. Like, she would have missed it had they fought too, wouldn't she? Or maybe she had to stay in the U.S. to train. And like, when was that originally booked? Let's see. Tapology.
So yeah, there's definitely bad blood between the two. And
yeah, but
at the end of the first round, Bohm actually like hooks the leg of Kim as she was standing out and kind of trips her. And then the second round is that push kick happened that she got the point deducted for. Kim did.
That was 3 months ago. Was their first fight was booked that got canceled. So I can't imagine that she had to stay in the U.S. for 3 months out of that. I get the like, it's tragic and it would be a terrible thing to miss. But then, like, going and making that like a reason to hate your opponent because they fell ill before your fight that you were supposed to have. I mean, we're just talking about how martial arts can help people find peace and all of that kind of stuff. And like, It's clearly not helping there because
Well, there's martial arts
Kim.
and there's the fight game.
I
Like
know, but
what you have to do to get up for a fight, like that's your business. Like if you
yeah.
gotta hate the other person, whatever.
But
Some
if
people
Kim
are
has
that
to
way.
hate the other person and she fights like this, then hating the other person is not a functional strategy because she absolutely fought the stupidest fight she could out there. This is a terrible fight from her on every level.
No, yeah, she should have won this fight.
Yeah,
Totally winnable fight for her. She could
easily
have even
winnable.
gotten
I
a
mean,
knockout.
I still scored it for her after losing 2 points. That's how winnable this was.
Right.
And she just threw it in the trash. Like, this was an absolutely miserable fight from Kim. It sucks that there were some, family and life circumstances that may have pushed her to make it to feel like she had something to prove out there for this fight. Like that sucks, but you've just lost your
Your
last
job.
your last 5 straight fights now. And
She's
yeah,
unemployed.
that sucks because this was
Especially
a super
not like
winnable fight.
that. You're
Yeah.
getting 2-point deductions. And again, the rules need to fucking change. Getting a point deducted for kneeing someone, and that's how the fight ended. Like, Bohm took a illegal knee on the ground, and could not continue. And then, like, she gets her hand raised, and she's all like celebrating, like, at least play it off like Aljo did, right?
Yeah.
I felt so gross after this fight. I felt so gross. The first point deduction, totally legitimate. Like, you can't be kicking people off you like that. Fine.
You know what? I'm not going to say it's not legit. I'm not going to say I don't get it. I'm not going to say it shouldn't happen more often, but I will say that I feel like I see fighters kick their opponent off of them all the time in MMA after rounds where, like, somebody's the round ends with somebody on top of somebody in their guard and the person isn't getting up quite fast enough and their opponent just like kicks them off and like gets up pissed off. I have seen that play out so many times and never seen a point taken for it like that. Now, I'm saying maybe it should be. Sure. It is. It was just a little bit like.
And there are levels to it. And another thing is, referees officiate differently depending on who's in there. So the official might know the backstory and was like, I'm not tolerating any bullshit between you two. Y'all aren't keeping it clean. I'm taking a point right away. I'm not playing games. And they have these conversations with fighters beforehand. So it could have been a situation like that. I'm not upset for that point. But
I'm not upset about the point.
I was upset that the second point was taken because it's an illegal move. You can't knee people on the ground. But the fact that it's even a rule is disgusting. And this is a perfect example why.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm upset that the first point was taken. I'm just saying I'm surprised. I'm surprised because I have seen that happen 100 times before easily, and I've never seen a point taken for it before.
And so the second point was weird because they stopped the fight and the fight was over, but then they deducted the point anyway after the fact to the point where the judges were given their scorecards back. They were already tallied and they had to retally them to deduct the point. And that stinks. Like, that smells fishy to me. And maybe it was on the up and up, but you can't do that. That just, it doesn't, there's too much room for shenanigans.
Yeah, there's that too. I don't actually have a big problem with that. I just think what really should happen there is that the official that they handed the scorecards into should just be able to do the math. You don't need to give these cards back to people.
I don't want anybody writing on my scorecard. No. Nobody else should be writing on my scorecard that I signed off on. You can't do that.
Well, what? I mean, then you have to allow it to be given back. If nobody else can write on it by you.
Or you can't deduct points after the fight's over. How about that?
Nah, I don't see any problem with that. That you got a foul that ends a fight, and you're trying to figure out what to do about it, and you're maybe talking to a couple other officials and all that, and the cage side judges are out ahead of you. You can't control that. Like,
you can't. But I think I'd rather see a DQ here. than this wonky ending.
Sure. I could see that. This was all. It was just a mess. It was a shit show.
100%.
All right. Let's move on. Catchweight bout. Brian Battle, Gabe Green. And all before this fight, I was all just like, man, Gabe Green's pressure is gonna be a problem. What does Brian Battle do against a high output, high pressure fighter like Gabe Green? And you just knocked him out. That was it. That's what he did. Gabe Green, I mean, even under high pressure circumstances, this was the dumbest way for Gabe Green to fight. To just run at him with throwing both hands with reckless abandon. Like
unless it would have worked. And then it was like, of course, you pressured him and knocked him out. Of course you did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Battle showed the fuck up. That's what this was. Right?
He did.
In front of a home crowd. He was getting bullied. He was getting pushed back. He was getting hit. And he made a conscious choice to bite down on his mouthpiece and fire back. And we got a gorgeous pocket, bro. I mean, this is fantastic. Like, this is what I want to see. Zane, you always talk about
I know you love those instant knockouts.
Oh, it's the best.
You sure this one wasn't too long for you, Eddie? You sure it wasn't too long?
It's right there within the cut. But I mean, this is great. Like, I don't want anything more than a fight. If all fights were like this, I'd be a happy camper. It's like a mini war has this abrupt ending. And like the dude, like you could just see the raw emotion. Like he's like bawling his eyes out as they're announcing his name in front of his friends and family. And like, I'm not like eager or I don't mark the calendar for a Brian Battle fight. This was cool as shit. This might be the coolest thing he ever does in his career. This was
absolutely
fantastic.
Could be. Absolutely
because remember when he had that head kick knockout and he could have just walked away like a boss, but then he had that lame ground and pound follow up.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you could have done fucking cool and you botched it a little bit. Well, he made up for that here. This was fantastic.
Yeah. It was cool. And, keeps Battle interesting in the welterweight division. I'm feeling, unfortunately, it takes away a lot of the interest for Gabe Green in the welterweight division going forward. As a dude who was like kind of a high output pressure machine, he's now just had two really rough looking losses for him that were not exciting on his side of things at all. That Ian Gary fight was not competitive, and this was terrible.
I wonder if like his Phil Rowe win maybe skewed our opinion on him as a fighter.
For me, it was honestly it was his loss to Daniel Rodriguez that really had me like, oh, I like this dude because he came in. I can't even remember. It might have been on short notice.
I think it was.
And he just they went to war. It was just this like high output foot race. D-Rod landing big counters, Green staying in his face, staying gritty, all that kind of stuff. And then he comes out and he does it to Philip Rowe where he comes back and he's putting on the pressure. And then he does it to Yolan. And I'm like, yeah, this is fun. This dude's a fun, he's a capable, high output, tough action fighter. And then Ian Gary made him look silly and Brian Battle made him look way sillier. So.
Yeah. Shout out to Brian Battle, man.
The
most unexpected moment of the entire card.
I get the feeling he's going to be one of those fighters that I am fading for the bulk of his career, and he's just like keeps showing up and keeps winning, and I'll just be like, yeah, but next time. It's not going to happen again to me. I got it now.
And next thing you know, he's tying Matt Brown and Derek Lewis for most knockouts in UFC history 10 years from now or something.
Either that or I finally jump on the train and then he gets wrecked. That's how it always.
He's going to get wrecked along the way. He got wrecked in his last fight, honestly.
No,
the fact that he even survived and that fight wasn't stopped 7 times is a miracle.
Mm-hmm. All right, that brings us finally to our opening bout. Tainara Lisboa, Jessica Rose Clark, and man, Clark things are not working for her in the cage. Nothing about her game seems to work anymore at all.
Which is fine. Not everyone can be good, Zane.
I know not everyone can be good. It's just she's one of those people who she started fighting a long time ago, and she was kind of a one-note back foot counter puncher whose footwork wasn't that clean and all that. And then she finally gets to, she gets to make the jump to off of Invicta and all that into the UFC, and it's like, oh, she's getting a little money, some better training, start putting something together. And her fights, with like Pannie Kianzad and Jessica Ai were at least interesting. And she comes out and she beats Sarah Alpar and she beats Jocelyn Edwards. And it's like, oh, okay, you're putting something together. But anxiety just seems like it has taken over her career. Like she's talked about it, and she's talked about thinking about retirement and stuff like that too. And like this fight, she mixed it up and she went out there and she'd throw a couple strikes at Lisboa and just get countered and just look like she had no interest in being out there in this fight anymore. And
yeah, after like the first exchange.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's when she got rocked. She got rocked in the first round where she like she went dazed, and she came to, but after that, it was a lot more gun shy, and she was dying in those clinches. Like she just was failing miserably, expending so much gas for no reason, tiring herself out, and then to get reversed against the cage and pieced up. Rough night at the office. And Lisboa, credit to her. She's got some really solid tools. She's polished on the feet. She's got snap in her punches, and she can hold her own on the ground. So this was
a huge step up from her. This was a huge step up for her. Lisboa, like she fought nobody on the regionals. She was fighting 0-0, 0-1, 1-4, like the worst opposition possible. And then had to take like a year off after getting signed to the UFC off that record, and is now like came in with a win, came in looking great, came in looking like that time off paid off for her. She looked way cleaner, way more consistent, way sharper with her punches. Everything just looked better. So yeah, she's a fun addition to the women's bantamweight, and unfortunately for Jessica Rose Clark, it might be the last we see of her in the UFC, because at some point, even a division like women's bantamweight, you got to be like, okay, you've been finished 3 times in your last 3 fights, and you don't really look like you're enjoying any of this. We should probably not do this anymore.
Yeah, that might be it for her. Well, who knows? She might get one more. But she's being replaced, if that's the case, by someone who's a ton of fun.
All right, all told, up and down the card, pretty decent time. We saw things. There was no like major highlight, but experiences were
we got
had.
A couple. The Gary head kick I thought was sensational.
Sure. Yeah.
And the Brian Battle knockout was totally unexpected.
Yeah, both of those. All right. On that note, we're going to jump over here in just a second to record some bonus content for Substack. So if you're not subscribed to our Substack, jump on the Substack, help us out, help keep Bloody Elbow independent. And in the meantime, you can find me on Twitter at the Zane Simon. You can find Eddie on Twitter at the Eddie Mercado. And you can find both of us over every single day of our lives, rain or shine, snow or sleet, whatever it is, we are on bloodyelbow.com. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you later.
We're like the Waffle House of MMA journalism.
That's right.
Journalism.
Open all night, might get hurt.